The crash in the woods. Jake Walker liked quiet places. He didn't enjoy loud cities or busy streets. His favorite place in the world was the forest behind his small house. The trees were tall, the air was fresh, and no one ever came there. It was peaceful. Just the way he liked it. One cloudy evening, Jake put on his hoodie, grabbed his backpack, and walked into the woods. The birds were singing, and the wind moved softly through the trees. He was planning to sit near the stream and maybe take a few photos, nothing special, just another walk. But then he heard a strange sound. It wasn't an animal. It wasn't the wind. It was like metal breaking and something falling fast. There was a loud whoosh in the sky, and something small shot across the clouds. Jake looked up and saw a flash of blue light, then boom! A crash not too far from where he was standing. Jake's heart jumped. What the heck was that? He whispered to himself. He didn't run away like most people would. Nope. Jake did the opposite. He walked towards the sound. Maybe it was a plane, or a drone, or some crazy new tech. His curiosity was stronger than his fear. As he moved through the trees, he saw smoke in the distance. Something had crashed. It left a small trail through the bushes. Broken branches, burned grass, the smell of hot metal. Jake slowed down. Okay, that's not a drone, he muttered. In the middle of a small clearing, there was a weird-looking object. Not big, about the size of a suitcase. It was cracked open. Pieces were glowing. Sparks jumped from its broken sides. It didn't look human-made. It didn't look Earth-made. Jake moved closer, and then he heard a sound that made him stop cold. A soft whimper, like a cry, like a small animal, or maybe a baby. He looked around and saw something hiding under a fallen branch. It was shaking, small, covered in a thin, shiny skin. Big, glowing eyes stared back at him. It wasn't a human. It wasn't a dog. It wasn't anything he had ever seen. Hey, it's okay, Jake said softly, kneeling down. The creature backed away, scared, but it was clearly hurt. One of its legs was bent in a strange way. It had a cut on its side that was leaking blue fluid. Jake took off his hoodie and slowly moved forward. I'm not gonna hurt you, little guy. Very carefully, he wrapped the creature in his hoodie. It didn't fight. It just looked up at him with tired eyes. For a moment, Jake thought he saw gratitude. He brought the creature back to a small wooden shelter he had built long ago. It wasn't much, just a dry spot under a few logs protected from wind and rain. He made a soft bed from leaves and placed the creature there. I don't know what you are, he said, but you crash-landed on the wrong planet, buddy. The creature blinked. Its body gave off a soft light, like a nightlight glowing in the dark. Jake gave it water using the cap of his bottle. He even tried to offer some berries. The creature sniffed them, licked one, and gave a tiny chirp. It made Jake smile. For a while, everything was calm. But then, the peace was broken again. Deep hum filled the air. Jake looked up. The clouds turned red for a moment and a strange beam of light scanned the forest. It moved slowly like a giant flashlight from the sky. Jake ducked and pulled the creature close. The beam passed over them, but didn't stop. It moved on and disappeared after a minute. Jake's heart was racing. What was that? He looked at the creature. They're looking for you, huh? The creature made a soft sound and tucked itself into his hoodie, almost like a scared child hiding from thunder. Jake sat there in the dark, thinking. He had just helped something not from this world. Something soft and scared. Something being hunted. Whatever it was, it had chosen him. And now, Jake knew one thing for sure. This was no normal night. They're watching him. Jake didn't sleep that night. He sat beside the glowing creature, eyes wide open, listening to every crack of a branch, every whisper of wind. His body was tired, but his brain refused to rest. Something had changed, and he knew it. This wasn't a wild animal, it wasn't a pet, and whatever that red scanning, It wasn't a searchlight from Earth. He looked at the creature. It was curled up in his hoodie, breathing slow and steady. Its skin glowed faintly like soft moonlight. Jake still didn't know if it was sick or scared, or both. "What are you?" he whispered. The creature opened one eye. For a moment, Jake thought it understood him. Then it closed its eye again and gave a tiny chirp. Jake leaned back against the tree. He wasn't scared exactly, but something deep in his chest told him this was serious. Like global-level serious, maybe even galactic serious. The next morning, the forest looked calm when the sun came up. Birds chirped. Squirrels chased each other in the trees. Everything looked normal, but it didn't feel normal. Jake packed the creature gently into his backpack, lining it with a towel and leaving the top half open so it could breathe. "I can't leave you out here alone," he said, "and I need answers." He walked back to his cabin, eyes scanning the sky the whole time. No strange lights, no sounds, no ships, just clouds. But when he got home, something was off. His phone wasn't working. Not just no signal. It was dead. Even his backup power bank wasn't charging it. The screen blinked once and then turned. Black the TV, static, laptop, black screen. Okay. Not creepy at all, he muttered, sarcasm in full force. He went outside to check the solar panels. They were fine, no damage, still working. Then he heard it, a low hum, faint, like a faraway engine. Not a plane, not a car. He froze. The humming got louder for a moment, then stopped. He looked around but saw nothing. No ship, no drone, no one. He backed into the house slowly, locking the door behind him. Something, or someone, was watching. Him signs and symbols. Jake spent the day trying to act normal. He read a book, made soup, kept checking the creature. It didn't seem hurt anymore. It even floated an inch above the couch once before dropping back down. "Great," Jake said. "So you can float. Cool. That's totally normal." As the sun set, the sky turned a strange orange-gray color. Not usual for this time of year. Then he saw it. Just for a second. A flicker in the trees outside. Like a shimmer. A shape. Something not visible but there. It vanished as soon as he looked directly at it. Jake's hands started to sweat. Okay, don't panic. It could be some new government drone, or a hallucination. Yep, maybe I'm going crazy. But then, the final straw. At exactly midnight, he heard a click sound inside his house. He jumped up and checked the front door. Still locked. Then he looked down and saw glowing symbols etched into the wooden floor near the couch. What the? He stepped back. The creature was sitting up now, glowing softly. The same symbols were floating around its head like little stars. Jake stared at the floor. The symbols weren't written with paint. They were burned into the wood, etched like laser marks. Suddenly, images filled his mind. A planet burning. A royal figure crying. A beast. The same creature now in his home. Running from a battle. A tall alien woman reaching for it, her face filled with fear. Then, blackness. Jake stumbled back and fell onto the floor. What was that? Did you just show me that? The creature looked at him, blinking slowly. Jake's heart was racing. His mouth was dry. His world was spinning. "Who are you?" he whispered again. "And who's coming for you?" Far above Earth, in the dark shadows of space, a ship hovered just outside Earth's orbit. Silent, invisible. Inside the control room, a tall figure stood in front of a glowing screen. Her eyes were sharp and glowing purple. Her hair floated like silk in zero gravity. She wore a cloak with strange silver patterns. Every line of her face screamed authority and rage. She was the Princess of Altherian, and her most beloved pet was missing. "He's hiding on that planet," she said, voice cold. "Find him, and destroy anyone who gets in our way." Guards bowed and left the room. She stared at the screen showing Earth. Whoever took him will beg for mercy. Back on Earth, Jake didn't know her name. He didn't know he had something she loved more than anything. He didn't know his name would soon be spoken across galaxies. All he knew was that someone, or something, was watching, and they were getting closer. The princess arrives. The night was heavy. Outside Jake's cabin, the woods were deathly quiet, like nature itself was holding its breath. Not a bird, not a breeze. Even the crickets had gone silent. Jake sat near the fireplace, the strange creature now wide awake beside him. It was no longer hiding. It had grown slightly, not in size but in confidence. Its soft glow was brighter now, and strange patterns had appeared on its skin. They pulsed slowly, all like a heartbeat. Jake wasn't sure if he should be amazed or terrified. Suddenly his lights flickered, once, twice, and went completely out. Total darkness. Not again. Jake stood slowly and reached for a flashlight. But before he could press the button, the temperature in the room dropped. His breath came out in white clouds. Then, a flash. Bright, silent, blinding, and just like that, she was inside, the Princess of Altharion. She stood tall and calm in the middle of Jake's cabin like she owned the air itself. Her cloak shimmered like a moving galaxy. Her eyes glowed with violet fire, and silver lines traced her face like ancient runes. Jake stumbled back, heart pounding. She wasn't holding a weapon. She was the weapon. "You," she said, her voice echoing inside his skull. "You dare take what is mine?" Jake blinked. What? I didn't take anything." She raised a hand. Jake couldn't move. His body froze. His mouth hung open mid-word. The creature let out a loud, sharp screech, a sound Jake had never heard it make before. It floated between them as if trying to protect him. The princess paused. Her eyes softened. For just a second. The creature hovered closer to her, then stopped. It turned back to Jake, clearly torn between two worlds. The princess lowered her hand. Jake gasped for air as his body unlocked, like invisible chains falling off. "You helped it?" she asked, confused. Jake nodded, still catching his breath. "Yeah, I found it hurt, in the woods. I didn't know what it was. I couldn't leave it." She stared at him, silence stretched. Then she said, with strange calm, "His name is Zira. He is no beast. He is the last of the royal guardians, and he belongs to me." Truth's intentions, Jake looked at the creature. Zira. The little being blinked up at him, almost shyly. That was no monster. That was someone loyal. Someone brave. "Belongs?" Jake asked. "He's not a thing. He's not a pet. He's alive." The princess narrowed her eyes. "You speak boldly for a species known for breaking things it doesn't understand." Jake raised an eyebrow. "Well, maybe your people should try talking to us first instead of showing up like ghost assassins." She almost smiled. Almost. For the first time, she looked at Jake with something other than anger. Curiosity. "You didn't try to sell him? You didn't call your leaders? No cameras, no labs?" Jake shook his head. "I live alone, I hike, I fix broken toasters, that's about it. Government's not really my speed." That caught her off guard. "Then, why did you help him?" Jake shrugged. "He was hurt. It's what people are supposed to do." For a few seconds, neither of them spoke. Then a sharp, mechanical voice broke the silence. A communicator on her wrist. "Your Highness, we've lost connection with Guard Unit 3. Unauthorized teleport signature detected 0.2 miles east. Unknown threat approaching." She looked sharply at the cabin wall, then turned to Jake. "They found us." Shadows. In the trees outside, the forest lit up with distant flickers. Not fireflies, not flashlights, something else. Jake moved to the window. He saw them. Figures. Tall, moving in perfect silence, faces hidden under armor that bent light itself. One of them walked right past a tree and seemed to melt into it. "They're not your people, are they?" Jake asked. The princess shook her head. "No, they are bounty hunters. From the core dominion." Jake blinked. "Bounty hunters? You've got to be kidding me. They will destroy this house. You, me, and him." She turned to Zira. "They want the Guardian, alive or dead." Zira shivered and floated behind Jake again. He looked down at the creature, then at her. "Well, guess we're not staying for coffee. The escape begins." The princess touched her cloak. A circular shimmer appeared in the air, like liquid glass forming a portal. But before they could step in, a blast hit the side of the house. Wood exploded. Fire burst through the window. Jake grabbed Zira and ducked. The princess spun and threw her hand forward. A shield of purple energy blocked the next blast. "They're here!" Jake shouted. The princess looked at him. "Can you run?" "Lady, I've been hiking since I was 12. Try to keep up." They dove through the side door as the house erupted behind them. Beams of blue light cut through the smoke. One of the bounty hunters fired a net, nearly catching Zira, but the princess sliced it mid-air with a blade made of pure light. Jake's heart pounded as they ran through the trees. "What now?" he yelled. "We go to the mountains," she said. "There's a place where I can call for help, but we must reach it before they do." Behind them, the forest glowed red. Above them, in the clouds, something enormous was watching. Far, far away. Inside a dark war chamber, a shadowy figure watched the scene on a screen. His voice was cold, hungry. "So, the Guardian chose a human." He turned to his officers. "Then the human dies first." Misunderstood intentions. The mountain path was rough. Jagged rocks, no light, and the cold wind biting at Jake's face like icy fingers. But he kept moving, because stopping wasn't an option, not with alien bounty hunters behind them, not with glowing silent figures tracking them like ghosts. The princess walked ahead, graceful as ever, her long cloak shimmering in the moonlight. She didn't trip, didn't shiver, didn't even seem tired. Jake hated how cool she looked while he wheezed like a busted coffee machine. And Zira, the little guardian, floated between them like a glowing firefly, eyes darting in every direction. It was scared. Jake could feel it. He was scared too. The fire cave. After what felt like hours, the princess finally stopped. "We'll rest here," she said, and waved her hand toward a rocky wall. A section of stone shifted, opening silently into a hidden cave. Inside, the air was warmer, and the walls glowed with strange orange crystals. A fire ignited on its own as they stepped in. Jake dropped to the ground with a groan. "If I knew helping a space pet would turn into an alien manhunt, I'd have stayed home and made waffles." The princess raised one elegant eyebrow. "Waffles?" He gave her a look. "Don't tell me your galaxy doesn't have waffles." She ignored the question and knelt beside Zira, who had curled up near the fire, still glowing, still nervous. Jake watched them quietly. There was something gentle about the way she touched the creature, something human. He finally asked the question that had been chewing at him all day. Why is he so important? The truth about Zira the princess didn't answer right away. She stared into the fire, the flames reflecting in her violet eyes. "Zira is more than a guardian," she said at last. "He is a keeper of balance, a living key." A key to what? To peace or to war? Jake blinked. "Well, no pressure, little guy." She continued, her voice lower now. "Long ago, my people created a species to protect royal bloodlines. Zira's kind were part animal, part energy, and part memory. They could feel truth, they knew loyalty. But one by one they were hunted, stolen, used in wars." Jake looked at the creature, now fast asleep. "And this one's the last?" She nodded. "The last, and the most powerful." Jake sat in silence. His thoughts were racing. Why had Zira chosen him? A nobody human with a broken phone and an old cabin. And then, something strange happened. The fire in the cave flickered. The crystals on the wall pulsed. Jake felt a wave of emotion, sadness, longing, fear, and none of it was his own. He looked at the princess. "Did you feel that?" She nodded slowly. "Zira is dreaming." Enemies within. Before Jake could speak again, the fire dimmed. The air grew cold. The princess stood quickly. "They've found us." "No, wait," Jake said, squinting. "I don't think it's them." Footsteps echoed in the cave. Then, a new figure entered. Tall, wearing armor similar to the princess's. Guards, a face he hadn't seen before. "Your Highness," the man said, bowing slightly. "I found your signal. I came alone." The princess hesitated. "You were not assigned to this mission." "I followed orders. From the council." Jake narrowed his eyes. Something was off. The man's smile didn't reach his eyes. Suddenly, Zira hissed. The man drew a small object from his belt, a cube. It pulsed with red light. The princess's voice turned sharp. "Drop it. Too late." The cube released a wave of sound. Zira screamed. The princess stumbled. Jake's ears rang as he fell to the floor. The man walked forward, lifting a strange weapon. "You shouldn't have trusted the human, Your Highness," he sneered. "They always choose chaos in the end." Jake looked up, barely able to move. "Dude," he groaned, "you don't even know me." Jake fights back. As the traitor turned his weapon toward the princess, Jake spotted a fallen crystal shard near his foot. Without thinking, he grabbed it and threw it. The shard hit the cube, shattering it in a bright blue flash. The sound wave stopped. The princess recovered instantly. In one smooth motion, she raised her hand, and the traitor was thrown across the cave wall by an invisible force. He hit the stone and crumpled to the ground, unconscious. Jake rolled onto his back, panting. "I want a raise," he muttered. The princess looked at him, and for the first time, she smiled. Understanding grows later, as they sat by the fire. Again, she spoke more softly. "I judged your species too quickly," she said. "I was taught humans destroy what they fear." Jake sipped water from his bottle. "Yeah, we do that. Sometimes. But not always. You protected him. Even against your own kind." Jake looked at Zira, who was now resting peacefully again. "I didn't do it for him. I did it because it was right. That's what being human should mean." She looked at him long and hard. Something in her expression shifted. From judgment to respect him, maybe even trust. Meanwhile, across the stars in a distant fortress above a dying moon, the dark figure watched the cave scene on a flickering screen. "The bond between them is growing," he growled. "We must act soon." A soldier stepped forward. "Shall we deploy the hunting fleet?" The figure's voice was like poison. "No. We send something personal." He turned and opened a glass case. Inside, a creature even Zira would fear. Back in the cave, as dawn broke over the mountain, the princess stood and spoke quietly. "It's time. We must reach the signal tower. From there, I can call my ship." Jake got up, stretched, and looked at the glowing horizon. "Let me guess," he said. "No elevators, just more running?" She smirked. "Try to keep up, Earth boy." And just like that, they stepped out into the rising sun. But the real storm was still coming. "We're being hunted." The sun rose slowly over the mountains, but it didn't bring peace. It brought shadows. Jake walked beside the princess, boots crunching softly on the gravel path. Zira floated behind them, silent, eyes glowing with quiet fear. The sky was pale blue, but something in the air felt wrong. Too still, too quiet. like the world was waiting for something terrible. The plan. "We're close," the princess said, her voice calm but sharp. "There's a signal tower hidden inside the cliffs. If I can reach it, I can call my ship. We can get off this planet." Jake raised an eyebrow. "And what? Fly away and pretend none of this happened?" The princess didn't answer. Jake sighed. "Right. Royal secrets. Forgot I'm just the weird human in this equation." She looked at him with a flicker of guilt in her eyes. "You've done more than any warrior I've known." That caught Jake off guard. "Was that a compliment?" "Thanks," he said slowly. "I think." Eyes in the trees, they entered a forest path now, dense with twisted trees and mossy rocks. The light barely made it through the leaves. Zira suddenly stopped. Its glow brightened. "What is it?" Jake whispered. Zira chirped, one short sound. The princess's face turned cold. "He senses them." "Who?" She looked at the shadows, ahead. "The hunters." The ambush a branch cracked behind them. Then another. Figures moved between the trees, silent as ghosts. Jake spun around. "We're surrounded." The princess threw out her hand. A glowing shield of light spread out in a dome around them just in time. A plasma bolt slammed into it from the shadows and exploded with a loud crack. "Move!" she shouted. They ran, the shield flickering as more shots rained down. Zira zipped through the trees, leading the way like a flashlight with wings. Jake dove behind a log, panting. "They have freaking laser crossbows." "They don't, miss," the princess said flatly, "so don't stop running." The hunter with no face, one of the bounty hunters, broke from the group and chased alone. Faster, smarter, more dangerous. He wore armor that bent light, making him nearly invisible. He moved like a shadow, silent, deadly, hunting without hesitation. Jake didn't see him coming, but Zira did. The little guardian let out a loud shriek and slammed into the hunter mid-air. The attack didn't hurt him, but it bought time. Jake turned and threw a rock, and not his best move, but it hit the hunter's cloak and caused a flicker in the invisibility field. "Gotcha, creepy dude." The princess fired a wave of energy that hit the hunter in the chest. He flew backward and vanished into the brush. For now. The cliffside cave. They reached the side of a cliff where the signal tower was hidden. From the outside, it looked like a normal cave. But once inside, the walls shimmered with faint alien lights. The princess pressed her hand to the wall. It scanned her palm, then opened a control panel. "This will take a few minutes," she said, fingers flying over strange, glowing keys. Jake paced. "How many of them are out there?" "Too many," she said. "They won't stop. Not until they take Zira, or kill us all." Zira floated up to Jake and rested on his shoulder. He looked at the tiny being. "You really are a big deal, huh?" Zira blinked slowly. Then, the lights inside the cave dimmed. The princess looked up. No. "What now?" "They've disabled the tower from outside. They're jamming the signal." A sharp clang echoed from the mouth of the cave. Then another. Footsteps. Heavy ones. "They're coming in," Jake said, voice tight. The princess drew her blade of light. "Then we make our stand." Trapped. The cave was small. Nowhere to run. The only way out was through them. Jake picked up a long metal rod from the ground. Alien tech. Maybe a broken weapon. Maybe a tool. "Not much of a sword," he muttered. "But it'll have to do." The first bounty hunter entered. Tall, 4 arms, eyes, like burning coals. Jake charged anyway. The fight was chaos. The princess moved like a dancer of death, blade slicing, light flashing. Jake swung wildly, barely staying alive. Zira darted between attackers, using small pulses of energy to disarm and distract. But the enemy just kept coming. Jake took a hit to the side and crashed into the wall. Blood dripped down his forehead. The princess screamed as a net wrapped around her legs. She slashed it, but more came. Zira let out a screech. And then, everything changed. Zira awakens. The tiny guardian glowed so brightly it blinded everyone in the cave. A shockwave burst from its body, throwing the hunters against the walls. Their weapons fried, their armor cracked. Zira floated higher and began to change. Its body expanded, not into a monster, but into something more. It looked ancient, wise, made of light and sound, a being of memory and power. Its true form. The princess stared in awe. Jake just whispered, "Whoa." Zira's voice echoed in their minds, not with words but feelings. Protect, trust, chosen. Then the light faded, and the enemy was gone. The cave was silent again, the calm. Before the storm, Jake helped the princess to her feet. She was shaken. So was he. "What just happened?" he asked. She didn't answer for a moment. Then she said quietly, "He chose you. He bonded with you. That power, it was protecting you." Jake looked at Zira, now small again, resting weakly in his arms. "I didn't ask for this," he said. "But it asked for you," she replied. Outside, the sun was setting. Far away, the dark figure who commanded the hunters stood in a new ship, staring down at Earth. "It's time I handle this myself," he said. The secret of Jake's bloodline. The sky above the mountains was dark purple now, with stars beginning to flicker through the haze. But Jake wasn't looking at the stars. He was staring at Zira, who now lay silent in his arms, dimmer than ever before. The energy blast from the cave had saved their lives, but it had drained Zira almost completely. Jake knelt beside the princess, who had taken a hit to her arm during the attack. Her silver blood glowed faintly through a tear in her sleeve. "You okay?" Jake asked, breath ragged. "I've had worse," she said, wincing. Jake looked at Zira again, then around the ruined tower chamber. "We need to get out of here fast." The princess nodded. "There's a crash site not far from here. One of my scouts went down weeks ago. If we can reach it, I may be able to power up the distress signal." Jake helped her to her feet, and, together, with Zira gently resting against his chest, they disappeared into the night. They didn't know it yet, but someone was already waiting for them. The figure in the flames deep inside a wrecked temple hidden beneath the forest. The Dark Commander stood at the center of a glowing circle. His name was Valemore, and he had waited centuries for this moment. "Human contact confirmed," a voice crackled from a drone hovering beside him. Valemore turned slowly, his black armor reflecting the light of the flames. "Prepare the blood. Scanner," he ordered. "We verify him, before we destroy him." The hidden ship Jake and the princess found the old crash site just before dawn. A sleek, silver ship half buried in rock and vines. The princess ran her hand across the smooth hull. "It still breathes." Jake raised an eyebrow. "I'm sorry. Ships here breathe?" She ignored him and activated a control panel. A soft hum filled the air. "Power cells are low, but it's enough," she said. "I can boost a signal from here." Zira floated weakly toward the ship's center console and touched it with one small paw. The lights inside the ship blinked, then turned solid blue. The princess froze. Jake noticed. "What? What does that mean?" "That," she said slowly, "should not be possible. The bloodline activation." She stared at the console, then at Jake. Her eyes searched his face, not with suspicion now, but with something else. Recognition. "I need your hand," she said. Jake held it out, confused. "What for?" She took a small device, a glowing needle, and pricked his palm. "Ow. Stop crying, Earth Boy. Look." On the scanner screen, Jake's blood glowed, not red, but silver blue. The princess stepped back, stunned. This can't be." Jake looked at his glowing hand, completely lost. "Okay. What can't?" Your blood, it carries royal markers from my people." He blinked. "What? That's impossible. I'm from Iowa. I eat pizza rolls for breakfast." She ignored the food comment. "You're not fully human. Somewhere in your bloodline, maybe hundreds of years ago, your ancestors were touched by the stars." Jake stared at the scanner. His heart pounded. His skin tingled. 1,000 questions screamed inside his head. "I don't understand," he whispered. "You don't need to," she said. "But now I do. Zira didn't choose you by accident. He knew." The attack begins before either of them could say another word. A deep boom shook the ship. The ground outside cracked. Jake ran to the window. Oh no. Vial Moore's ship had landed. The Dark Commander stepped out, flanked by 2 massive hunters in black armor. But he didn't rush in. He just stood there, waiting. "Come out, human." Valmore's voice echoed through a speaker. "You carry what does not belong to you." The princess drew her blade. "He's not ready." "He doesn't have a choice," Valmore said, and then the ship was blasted open. The final push, the princess fought like a storm, her blade glowing, her cloak whipping through the air. She held off the hunters with grace and fury. Jake grabbed Zira and ducked behind a metal console. His head was spinning. "I have alien blood. I'm being hunted. My new friend's a space hamster with god powers." Zira looked at him weakly and let out a soft chirp of encouragement. "Okay," Jake whispered. "Let's do something stupid." He stood up. Valmore turned toward him. Jake stepped forward, holding Zira. "You want this? Come get it." Valmore smiled. "As you wish." He raised his hand and sent a wave of energy straight at Jake. But before it could hit, the ship's core lit up, reacting to Jake's blood again. A beam of light burst from the floor, wrapping around Jake and Zira both. His body lifted into the air. The princess looked up, stunned. "He's activating the core." Zira's glow returned, brighter than ever. Jake's eyes flashed silver blue. A voice filled the room, ancient and powerful. "Bloodline confirmed. Legacy accepted. Royal protocol unlocked." Vial Moore stepped back in horror. "No." Jake hovered, arms outstretched, eyes glowing like stars. Then he landed, hard. He stood, slowly, and he looked different, stronger, calmer. "Ready." "All right," Jake said. "My turn." Return of the Royal. Jake stood in the center of the wrecked ship, glowing with silver blue energy. Zira floated beside him, reborn in radiant light, no longer weak, no longer afraid. The walls of the ship pulsed, alive and listening. Valmore, the Dark Commander, stared at them in disbelief. "This power does not belong to you," he growled. "You're human. You are nothing," Jake smirked. "Well, that's the funny thing about humans," he said, eyes glowing. "We tend to surprise people, especially space jerks with god complexes." The final battle begins. Valmore charged forward, swinging a blade made of red plasma. The princess intercepted him with a blade of her own, their weapons clashing with a sound like thunder. Sparks flew. Stones cracked. Jake joined the fight, using the ship's control systems with just his hands. Doors sealing, weapons activating, shields flaring up. Zira zipped around like a tiny glowing comet, zapping enemy soldiers with pure energy, each pulse pushing them back. "You were never meant to be part of this." Valmore roared, slamming the princess back. Jake stepped between them. "But I am now." Valmore raised his hand to finish Jake, but the ship responded to Jake's will. A pulse of energy exploded from the core, knocking the commander back. "Li Wan." Princess turned to Jake, panting. "He can't win. He'll destroy everything to take Zira." Jake looked at Zira, who floated beside him, eyes soft but steady. "I think it's time we show him what everything really means." The vision. Suddenly, the ship filled with light. Jake, the princess, and Zira were frozen in place as a hologram formed around them. A memory, ancient and shining. A tall figure appeared, an ancestor of the princess, a royal leader from long ago. She spoke with a voice of stars. This guardian is not a weapon. It is a bridge, between bloodlines, between worlds. When the time comes, one of royal blood and one of earth's soil will stand together, or fall divided. The vision faded. Jake looked at the princess. I guess that's us. She gave a half smile. I was hoping for someone taller. The Turnvalemore screamed in rage and called in his last weapon. A beast bred for war, dark and twisted with claws like blades and eyes of fire. Jake stood in front of the princess. I've got this. She raised an eyebrow. You barely survive squirrels. Jake grinned. Yeah, but now I glow. The beast lunged. Jake met it head-on. His energy field pulsed with a shield created by the ship's core. His movements were no longer human. The alien bloodline inside him had fully awakened. He dodged, countered, and, with a burst of light from Zira, struck the beast down. It crashed to the ground with a final roar. Silence. Then a low voice. From behind Valemore, now alone, wounded, crawling forward. You don't understand, he whispered. This creature, this guardian, it doesn't protect peace, it brings chaos, it divides. Zira floated forward, and for the first time, spoke, in a voice that echoed inside their minds. You bring division, I bring choice. A beam of golden light burst from Zira and surrounded Valemore. He vanished, not in pain, in silence. The goodbye. The ship's systems rebooted. The princess finally activated the emergency beacon. We'll be picked up in under an hour, she said softly. My people will arrive, you'll be safe. Jake nodded slowly, wiping dirt from his face. And Zira? She looked at the glowing creature, now perched on Jake's shoulder like it belonged there. He bonded to you. His choice is made. Jake swallowed hard. So he stays? No, she said gently. He goes with you. Jake blinked. Wait, what? You're one of us now, she said. Earth is no longer your only home. Jake looked at Zira. Zira chirped softly, a sound that somehow meant, ready? The return of the Royal, the rescue ship arrived in a flash of light and humming engines. Soldiers bowed. The princess stepped aboard like a true ruler once again. But now, beside her, stood a man in worn boots, glowing softly with ancient power. Jake, and the last guardian. The ship lifted into the sky. As they broke through the clouds, Jake looked down at Earth, his old world, shrinking below them. Guess I finally got out of the woods, he said. The princess smirked. Now we see what you do with the galaxy. Earth, months later. Jake's cabin was empty now, covered in moss and silence. But one small item remained on the doorstep, a note, burned into wood by glowing letters. He was one of us. He still is. And when Earth is ready, we'll return.